We all know this, that it's better to live courageously than cowardly. Everyone knows that. That's what you teach people that you love. You wake up in the morning, your consciousness reemerges on the stage of existence. And what you're confronted by is the potential of the day. You see the day as a set of possible pathways. You could do this, you could do that, you could not do this, you could not do that. And your conscience speaks to you too, almost immediately, I would say, upon awakening. Here's something I need to do today to keep things in order. Here's something I need not to do today to keep things in order. Here's my set of obligations that I need to undertake so that when I go to sleep tonight, I can sleep with a clear conscience and things are better than they might have otherwise been. And so what you see in front of you is the potential of the world. And to me, you see, that's akin to the potential that God confronted in Genesis at the beginning of time. That's the meaning of that story, is that there's a potential that is confronted by an attitude. The attitude that is appropriate in relationship to that confrontation is the attitude of the logos. And the logos is something like courage. That's one of its primary attributes, and truth. That's the other. Now there's more, but I would say if you had to boil it down to two, it would be courage and truth. And the idea there is that if you confront the potential that's in front of you with truth and courage, that what you do is you take what could be and you transform it into what is. And you do that and you transform it into what is that's good. And you have that is you. That's your soul. That's the thing that, as Genesis points out, that gives you that affinity with God. The fact that you're made in the image of God is the fact that you have that capability, and that capability to take that potential and to make the world out of it is also dependent on your ethical choices. And everyone knows that, right? Even if we can't articulate it, you know perfectly well that you can wake up in a miserable mood, bitter and unhappy, and do 25 things that day to make your life more like hell than it was, and to share that delight with the people around you. Everyone understands that. And you know as well that you can decide to face things courageously and truthfully, and you can make tomorrow's morning somewhat better than today's morning was by setting the world in order. You can't be doing that because you want to be a good person in some sense. And you can't be doing that because you want to be seen as being a good person. That's not the right attitude. You have to be doing it because it's the transcendently right thing to do. It's the thing that you do if you aim at the highest possible ideal. And that is laid out in the Sermon on the Mount, is that you should aim at the highest possible ideal, and then that you should concentrate on the day. And it's deadly serious psychological advice. Aim high. Lift your eyes above the horizon, right? Lift your eyes to the stars that beckon above. Try to set things right and to orient your life. And there has to be a relationship with the transcendent that allows you to do that properly, or it becomes an exercise in ego, and then it doesn't work. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. Because you need to have a hierarchy of improvement. You need to be aiming for something, and that means you're going to be lesser than people who've already attained along that dimension. So the question is, who should you defeat in the final analysis? And the answer is, you should defeat your former self. You should be constantly trying to do that. And you're the right control for yourself too, because you're the one who's had all your advantages and disadvantages. And so if you want to compete fairly with someone, then you should be competing with you. If you're improving yourself, then what you are doing is competing with your lesser self. And then you might also ask, well, what is that lesser self? And that lesser self would be resentful and bitter and aggressive and vengeance-seeking, and all of those things that go along with having a negative moral character. And those are things that interfere with your ability to progress as you move forward through life. So it's very necessary to understand that this is why I've been stressing this idea of personal responsibility. It's like, well, personal responsibility is to compete with yourself, is to be slightly better than yourself the next day. And it better in some way that you can actually manage, and that's humility. Like, well, I'm a flawed person, I've got all my problems. Could I be as good as person X? It's like not the right question. The right question is, could you be slightly better tomorrow than your currently flawed self? And the answer to that is, if you have enough humility to set the bar properly low, then you could be better tomorrow than you are today. And you might say, well, what's the right way of being in the world, if there is such a thing? And it's not acting according to a set of rules. It's attempting continually to transcend the flawed thing that you currently are. And what's so interesting about that is that the meaning in life is to be found in that pursuit. So I've been laying that out in these discussions too, because I say, well, the fundamental issue is that life is tragic and difficult, very tragic and difficult for everyone. And it's also tainted by malevolence, because no matter how things are tragic and difficult, but there's always some stupid thing that you could do or someone else could do that could make it even worse than it has to be. And so that's life. And you need an antidote to that, because that can embitter you. Constant contact with that, just the tragedy, but the tragedy combined with betrayal and malevolence, that makes it even worse, especially if it's self-induced.